21 years old Ashley Parlier and her parents, Rhys and Sherry Parlier, got into a fight on Sunday, June 12, 2005, and she angrily stormed out of their Battle Creek house. Ashley was still missing after a week, so her family filed a missing persons report. All searches for her whereabouts for more than 10 years were fruitless. It wasn't until 18 years later that her family and the police finally received the information they had been frantically looking for. What possible places could Ashley have gone? What ultimately allowed what had happened to her to be discovered? Stay with us as we reveal the mystery behind this cold case that finally became solved after 18 years. According to the 2020 census, Battle Creek, which is located in Michigan, has a population of over 50,000. The city has a variety of recreational areas and historic sites, which helps to create a tight-knit neighborhood where people get to know one another by name and take part in adventurous activities. Despite its friendly and welcoming atmosphere, Battle Creek faces serious safety concerns because its violent crime rate is significantly higher than the national average. The community's distress over Ashley Parlier's disappearance in 2005 was worsened by this situation, a case that left the locals shaken and looking for explanations. Ashley Parlier was birthed into the world on October 16, 1983, to the joy of her parents, Russell and Sherry Parlier. She was the second child in the Parlier family. Her early years gave the impression of a young girl who was reserved. This was more a function of her inherent nature than a lack of enthusiasm for life. In fact, Ashley's older sister, Nicole, used to make jokes about how she had an unshakable faith in people. Ashley, who had dark brown eyes and a smile that revealed her slightly misaligned but utterly endearing teeth, tried to see the best in everyone. She really believed people were just as she imagined. Good-hearted, Nicole recalled. Despite having a mild mental disability that limited her cognitive functioning to that of a 12 to 14-year-old, Ashley never allowed that to decide her life. She had a strong and firm spirit. She obtained employment at the nearby Taco Bell after graduating from Battle Creek High School, which is situated in the busy block of Northeast Capitol. At that point, her aspirations of getting her very own car began to take shape with each paycheck. She withdrew a small portion of her earnings, daydreaming about the independence a car would provide. Nevertheless, despite Ashley's optimism and ambitions, life had other ideas. For someone as trusting and kind as Ashley, the world was sadly not prepared to return her kindness because the unexpected twists of fate lurked in the shadows. No one knew she was about to face a tragic end that would make her optimism for a better future dim. 21 years old Ashley Parlier had a slim build and weighed just under 100 pounds. She stood at 5 feet 9 inches. Even the smallest physical change was bound to be significant for someone of her stature. This was especially true for her adoring parents, who on the fateful day of June 12, 2005, noticed an odd bump on their daughter's body. Ashley's parents' first worries centered on her well-being because of her kind nature and exceptional mental capacity. The potential health repercussions added to their concerns, and they were eager to have her examined. They believed that prenatal care was crucial if Ashley were to be pregnant. Nobody, least of all Ashley, found the realization, the worries, or the discussions that followed easy. After a heated argument, the atmosphere in the Parlier home in Bedford Township's urban neighborhood grew more tense. Ashley was distraught and hastily left the family home. She didn't take a lot of things, but she did have about $700 in cash. She didn't have a car, a license, a phone, or a credit card. So this money was her only option. Initially, it was assumed that Ashley's departure was due to her needing a brief break, some time to settle down, spend a day or two at a friend's house, if possible. This hope was clung to by the Parlier family. However, A growing sense of dread crept over the Parlier family as the minutes turned into hours and the hours into days. The family's optimism slowly gave way to panic. Every missed call and every knock on the door that wasn't Ashley's troubled her family and made the once bustling house quiet. The Parlier family couldn't wait any longer as the days went by and their worst nightmares started to materialize into a terrifying reality. They decided to call the police and file a missing person report for Ashley after realizing something was seriously wrong. Their expectations are replaced by grief and anxiety. Detectives started looking into Ashley Parlier's mysterious disappearance right away. The evidence appears scanty at first, in the hopes that someone had seen something or heard anything that could lead to her whereabouts. The public was shown a picture of Ashley wearing a checkered shirt with blue jeans and brown leather sandals. Although Ashley Parlier had a distinctive and memorable physical appearance, her emotional state before going missing was a major cause for concern. The case became more complicated as a result of her unplanned pregnancy, vulnerability as a result of her mental capacity, and the significant argument she had with her family just before she vanished. There were numerous reported sightings of Ashley coming from the Houghton Lake region, which seemed like a promising lead. Hopes for her safe return temporarily eased the family's desperation. This glimmer of hope, however, was fleeting, as each reported sighting proved to be a dead end, leaving the family and the detectives frustrated. The detectives then focused on Ashley's parents, Sherry and Russell Parlier, who were the people Ashley was closest to, particularly as a result of the delay in reporting her disappearance. Her parents came under suspicion. Russell willingly agreed to a polygraph test and passed. Sherry refused to, citing her health issues. Sherry was later reported to be displaying early signs of Huntington's disease. Ashley's sister, Nicole, emphasized how unusual Ashley's extended absence was and how out of character this behavior was for her. After the heated argument, the family had simply assumed she was cooling off at a friend's house and had been waiting for her to return home. This foolish assumption caused them to delay calling the police, complicating the investigation. As the detectives made attempts to contact Ashley's ex-boyfriend, who is thought to be the father of her unborn child but whose identity has not been made public, the web of suspicion grew. He was dating another woman at the time who was also carrying his child. Despite not being exonerated, there was no evidence linking him to her sudden disappearance. The investigators ran into numerous leads as they dug further. Some have speculations that Ashley might have had a fragile mental state. In an effort to find information that might offer some sense of closure, this prompted the police to search grimly for a body, but they turned up nothing. Another theory claimed that Ashley had been robbed, but that was disproven by the fact that nothing had changed regarding her social security number. The depressing reality set in as each day went by. Reluctantly, the detectives came to the conclusion that Ashley might have been the victim of murder. They believed she had passed away. Despite the best efforts of the Battle Creek Police Department, the case grew colder with each passing year. Numerous officers investigated Ashley's mystified disappearance over the course of 18 years. They had several persons of interest, but no hard evidence against any of them. So, the case went cold again. In a shocking turn of events, the case was turned over to the Sheriff's Department in 2020 due to rumors that Ashley may have been murdered outside of Battle Creek City. The mysteries appeared to be at a standstill until 2021, when an unexpected development rekindled the case's hopes of being solved. But as the years passed, the light of hope faded. The once hot case soon became a frozen mystery because the trail of leads had grown stale. The leads had almost completely disappeared despite the investigators' best efforts, leaving them in a chilly state of uncertainty. The investigation into the disappearance of Ashley Parlier had once more produced no fresh leads, no conclusive proof, and a plethora of unanswered questions. Every so often, a sudden jolt of unexpected information can rekindle hopes of solving a protracted mystery in the complex web of cold cases. That opportunity presented itself in the Ashley Parlier case from an unexpected source. When they got a call from Pennsylvania law enforcement, Calhoun County officers were surprised. It happened that detectives from Pennsylvania were interrogating 44-year-old Harold David Hallman III in January 2021. Harold was not just any suspect. He was suspected of being a serial killer. The investigators working on Ashley's case were immediately interested in this revelation. They wondered what information about Ashley's disappearance could possibly be revealed by questioning such a notorious felon. It's possible that the name Harold David Hallman III doesn't immediately come to mind, but he has a dark past. Harold, who was born on November 29, 1978, spent some of his teenage years living with his father in Germany. However, young Harold opted to remain in Germany with a girlfriend as his father relocated to Turkey. Although from the outside he appeared to be just another young man, looks can be deceiving. Harold committed his first known murder at the age of just 20. A 21-year-old Air Force colonel's son named Joseph Whitehurst was his victim. Whitehurst's body, which had been brutally attacked with a club, was found outside Ramstein Air Base. Harold admitted to killing him while in German custody for a different charge. He claimed it was self-defense. Harold was given a lenient 6-year sentence and a reformed school because of his advanced age and a schizophrenia diagnosis. Harold later made his way back to the United States, where he settled near Battle Creek Lakeview and worked as a truck driver. He became involved in the tragic 2005 disappearance of Ashley Parlier around this time. Years later, a mother of two named Tiana Phillips disappeared on June 13, 2018. During Harold's interrogation 3 years later, he said he hadn't intended to kill Tiana Phillips. He merely felt the urge to murder. Another woman, Erica Schultz, comes next. In the year 2020, on December 6, she disappeared. Her disappearance and murder was linked to Harold via phone records, and he casually compared her murder to a typical day at the park. When he was finally caught, he was injured along Pennsylvania railroad tracks. Harold saw his actions as sins requiring atonement. While in the hospital, he admitted to killing both Schultz and Phillips. Later, while he was imprisoned, he wrote a letter to his estranged wife, where he detailed his crime against Phillips. This was a devious attempt to demonstrate his devotion to his wife. Harold, interestingly, had a pattern. He would attack, making sure his victims were unconscious, and then leave their bodies in isolated places. His victims would vanish and sustain head injuries. He committed horrifying, organized crimes. The reasons behind Harold's sinister ideas and actions were murky. He had sophisticated theories about how power works and was interested in learning more about serial killers. He thought that relationships have a clear power dynamic where one person is dominant and the other is submissive. When his wife failed to play the submissive role, he looked elsewhere for that dynamic. When questioned, Harold was able to recall all the specifics of his crimes. He was very familiar with them. He acknowledged that if he wasn't caught, he would kill once more. After identifying two of the victims, Deanna Phillips and Erica Schultz, whom he had killed, Pennsylvania detectives investigating the horrific crimes committed by 44-year-old serial killer Harold David Hallman III discovered another unexpected revelation about Ashley's case. During interrogation, Harold shocked the officers by requesting that the cases of Phillips, Schultz, and Parlier be combined. He hoped to avoid several trials. The detectives were taken aback by the mention of Ashley Parlier. They hadn't discussed her case during their conversation. Their initial confusion gave way to increased curiosity. Harold might be able to shed some light on Parlier's disappearance. When detectives pursued the Parlier angle further, they encountered a startling confession. Harold openly admitted that he was curious about murder. "I just wanted to see what it felt like," he said to the detectives. For him, there was no activity or substance that could compare to the feeling of ending someone else's life. He committed his violent acts as a result of his grisly curiosity. His words painted a picture of a mentally troubled person. The detectives immediately contacted the Calhoun County Police Department to inform them of the startling confession's discovery and to update them on the case's progress. The detectives investigating Parlier's case went to question Harold right away because their curiosity to learn more details from him had piqued. Their further inquiries verified Harold's connections to Ashley Parlier. Records showed that Harold lived in Battle Creek from 2002 to 2009, a time frame in which he communicated with the missing young girl. The police put together a chilling timeline after doing more investigation. Ashley had sought shelter with Harold in Emmett Township, Michigan, following a dispute at her home. She told him about her family's worries and her pregnancy. This visit, however, took a tragic turn. The two got into a heated argument, and he started attacking Ashley. He soon carried her away to the isolated Pennsylvania hills, which was a quiet area. He then took her life there. Although Harold's admission deepened the tragedy, it also brought about closure in some ways. He remembered throwing away his blood-stained clothing and leaving Ashley's remains in Newton Township's northern area. Harold provided more information about his friendship with Ashley Parlier while the questioning was still ongoing. His admission made it clear that they had first met at an event where her parents were also in attendance. This coincidental meeting resulted in a conversation between the two of them, opening the door for a closer relationship later on. He also described how things played out on that crucial day when Ashley argued with her parents. Ashley had contacted him, not because he had any preconceived plans, but rather because he appeared to be someone she had trusted. When she went to see him, Ashley confided in Harold about the pressure from her parents to get a pregnancy test. Harold's admission that he was the father of Ashley's unborn child shocked the detectives. Anyways, after the news of a potential pregnancy from Ashley, the atmosphere became tense, and the two had a confrontation on the evening of June 13, 2005. In the midst of their argument, Harold lost his cool. He struck Ashley uncontrollably, knocking her out. He then took her about 10 miles out of the town center to a remote place where he described as an overgrown field in Michigan. This isolated location, which had a nearby garage or possibly a deserted house, served as the setting for a depressing story. Harold recalled the unsettling atmosphere created by Ashley's motionless body in the back of the car and the quiet surroundings. The fact that there were no passing cars confirmed his impression that this was the perfect spot to put Ashley's life to an abrupt end. He recalled the incident, explaining how he took Ashley out of the car and, in a fit of rage, killed her to ensure she would never live on the Earth's surface again. After that, Harold left for his house and removed all of the evidence. Later, he dumped his bloody clothes at Meijer, a well-known American superstore where he was employed at the time. Uncomfortably, Harold continued to be involved in Ashley's case after that. He acknowledged returning to the location years later and finding Ashley's skeletal remains. His admission was followed by an apology to the Parlier family. He expressed regret for Ashley's murder in particular, saying it was the crime he regretted the most out of all the ones he had committed. The Ashley Parlier case involved police work that was nothing short of relentless. Despite the case's many difficulties, they persevered in their pursuit of information and led for almost 2 decades in an effort to return Ashley to her family. So, when Harold Hallman's confession surfaced, Authorities had reason for optimism. They asked him to specify the precise location where he had left Ashley's remains in order to verify his account. This wasn't just any other case for both the officers and the prosecutors. It was extremely demanding in terms of time and resources. Over the years, there have been a number of detectives involved in the investigation who have all been committed to learning what really happened to Ashley. Their search went well beyond the boundaries of the city when local leads dried up. They traveled all over the country, contacting potential witnesses and looking for any leads in diverse locations like California, Maryland, and Pennsylvania. Detective John Pignataro from the Calhoun County Sheriff's Department, Detective Dave Haminga, and Detective Sergeant Chris Suarez from the Michigan State Police made up the strong investigative team. Thanks to their combined efforts, they eventually arrived at a wooded area along a 6.5-mile road in Newton Township, just south of Battle Creek. On March 30, 2022, there was a lot of searching going on. Almost 24 officers searched the area for hours in an effort to find Ashley. But they were unsuccessful. Locals mentioned that the landscape had drastically changed since Ashley's disappearance, which added another level of complexity. What was once a farmland had been divided up and sold over the years to different owners. Despite the focus of the search and the optimism expressed in Harold's confession, a significant obstacle materialized. Harold had trouble remembering the precise location where he had left Ashley after all these years. He struggled to locate the location because of the changes brought on by years of development in the area. The hunt for Ashley continues despite the absence of any remains. The police are still fully committed to solving this heartbreaking case, and they do so in the hopes that that day will come. Considering the degree of such investigations, Harold Hallman's trial in connection with Parlier's case followed a fairly straightforward course. It's crucial to remember that Harold had already been found guilty of killing 2 other women by the time he went on trial. The proceedings were hampered by this dismal track record. Even with these prior convictions, it was surprising to hear Harold express a real fear of the death penalty. Prior to the trial, he had been detained at the Luzerne County Jail. He chose a wise legal course in February 2023 when he pleaded guilty to Ashley Parlier's second-degree murder. He entered the plea as part of a deal with the district attorney's office in Luzerne County. He had consented to help the Calhoun County authorities find Ashley's remains. In exchange, he would be spared the imminent threat of the death penalty. Both the defense and the prosecution presented their cases during the trial. The prosecution emphasized the seriousness of Harold's crimes, particularly in light of his prior convictions, while Harold's defense likely focused on his cooperation with the police and his plea agreement. The most anticipated testimony was Harold's own, so to speak. Even though no new testimonies were mentioned, his prior confession was carefully examined, and its significance was clear. The conclusion was inevitable. Harold, the man who had killed multiple people, would not be eligible for parole. Instead, he would serve 2 life sentences plus an additional life sentence. Even though Harold's legal journey appears to be coming to an end, Ashley's case still needs to be resolved. The Calhoun County Sheriff's Office is still looking for information that could lead to the discovery of Ashley's remains. One is urged to contact the Calhoun County Sheriff's Office directly at 269-781-0880 if they have any information about the case. They are still as committed as ever to getting the information they need. The family of Ashley Parlier was plagued by the case for almost 2 decades. Sherry and Russell, her parents, tragically passed away in 2020 without ever learning what had become of their daughter. Nicole, the sister of Ashley, was suffering more and more. She discovered that Ashley had been betrayed by Harold after she had sought refuge with him. Nicole's sorrow was evident. She bemoaned the fact that her parents weren't able to hear this as she thought back on the tragedy and suspicion that surrounded her family 18 years ago. Nicole made friends with the sisters of the victims. They stood as one, sharing their common grief and concentrating on remembering their loved ones rather than the man who had taken them away. Nicole firmly stated in an interview, "We're going to remember how they were good people. The family now has closure. And even though they are still looking for Ashley's remains, they are also aware of the heartbreaking truth. What could have compelled Harold to carry out such a wicked deed? And how did he avoid capture for so long?" Post your comments to let us know what you think. Please share your suggestions for additional gripping true crime tales in the comments section if there is another case you'd like us to examine. Make sure to subscribe, like, and share. We deeply value your participation. Thank you for watching. Until next time, keep yourself safe and on the lookout for the next mystery to be solved.